Wonderful. Right. We're back for the very last stream of the day for ID24 2023. And wow, what a day, what a long day it has been. We had 27 speakers who kindly shared 24 amazing talks with us. I did a little bit of number crunching as much as I could glean from the YouTube Studio interface. And it seems to be, unless I got my figures wrong, that at peak times we had close to about 500 concurrent viewers across both the live stream and some of the archived videos that were already recorded from earlier in the day. In total, we seem to have approximated about 5,000 views for all of this year's streams, although the numbers always seem to be a few hours behind. But yeah, at the last count, we're around that figure. And with the audience tuning in from all around the world, interestingly, Indonesia featured quite highly at one point for some mysterious reason. Now, none of this would have been possible without the help and generosity of a lot of people. So in no particular order, I'm just going to say, first of all, thank you to all our supporters for this year. So we had Google, Intopia, Barrier Break, Tetralogical, Intuit, Infoaxia, and the Law Office of Lainey Feingold. Next up, our guest hosts who made sure that all our Q&A sessions ran smoothly. In order of appearance, we had Mike Herschel, a certain Stuart Hay, Christian Schaefer, Ian Lloyd, Mark Thiele, Johan Hoekman, Bruce Lawson, Gareth Ford Williams, and Jared Smith. And of course, a big thank you to all our wonderful speakers, too numerous to list here, otherwise we'll be here till about 6 a.m. my time, without whom there would of course be no conference at all to begin with. And it's their knowledge and expertise and their willingness to share it with the community that really makes ID24 what it is. A small pat on the back also goes to the ID24 crew itself, some of whom are here, others are probably comatose somewhere on the floor or on a couch or other surface. I know many of us have sacrificed a lot of sleep over the last 24 hours and even the last few months in the run-up to the actual event to get this show on the road and to keep it there for the duration of the day. And lastly, of course, thank you to our audience out there, who I'm presuming are out there. Thank you for the comments, social media messages, and for tuning into the various sessions. Now, this was the 10th year of ID24, and in that time, we've had 11 editions, because we're being awkward, of the conference, since we did 2 editions in 2017. Now, with the exception of 2015, where we had some streaming software issues, the videos for all other years are archived on our YouTube channel, so freely available. So if you ever get bored, you can probably spend a few weeks just watching all of the amazing talks we had over the years. And now I'm just going to open it up to everybody and say, so how was it for you? I will nominate Hans.
I thought it was a great edition this time, like every year, of course, but I don't think we had any technical issues to speak of, at least not the parts that I was involved with. The talks were really great. We had a really good variety of topics as well as speakers. And I really enjoyed just, going from a talk like Emmanuel's, about subtitles and seeing her personal experience with that, to like really hardcore, coding stuff about web components or mobile testing. It's nice to kind of go from topic to topic, and you never know what you're going to get. Completely different types of talks. I personally really like the bias in AI talk by Christopher Land, because I have a personal interest in AI as well. So yeah, I did get some sleep, so there's still some sessions that I need to catch up with, but overall it was a big success, I think.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, for my part, I did my usual trick of just running around and not actually paying attention to a lot of the talks. So yes, I will be doing a lot of retrospective kind of looking at things. I did set my VCR to record, so I should be fine. I'll go with Adrian.
Hello, thank you, Pat. Lovely to be here. I got to tell you, one of the things I enjoyed probably the most was Leonie's talk, simply because Pat, you helped, because Leonie was having audio issues and you had to grab her slides, and we kept people waiting, and we delivered. It was a little awkward. Timings weren't maybe ideal, and it all still came off. And that was probably our biggest technical glitch this year.
Yeah,
it was fine.
No.
It came out fine. People appreciated it. Leonie did a bang up job, as she always does. So I enjoyed that. I am personally, though, looking forward to seeing the talks I did not get to see, because I did this thing where I slept for
outrageous.
Why I should just follow your lead. Terrible mistake. But like Eric Bednar's talk, for example, basically all the overnight ones for me, I really want to see. I'm not going to tonight. I have other plans that involve my bed, but I'm looking forward to catching up on the ones that I missed, because if they're anything like the quality of the ones that I co-hosted or watched, then they will also be spectacular.
Yeah, and definitely I would say through not so much planning, but serendipity, there was a nice segue from the talk just before Eric's. So Donna Bungard's talk seemed to touch on the same kind of aspects that were then covered in Eric's as well. So we had a few of those instances where talks just seemed as if we planned it, and honestly, we didn't. Also, my favorite moment with what you mentioned with just trying to get Leonie's talk going was the fact that I had to grab the same talk from another conference and then do a last second find and replace to badge it as ID24. So, we don't leave things to the last minute, but,
Yeah, we'll just edit it in production. No big deal.
Absolutely.
No
It's like that silent movie where he's putting down the train tracks as the train is actually going, that kind of thing. Yes.
The house fell over, but we were standing in the window frame.
Absolutely.
Anyway, well done. I am going to toss it to Ian.
Well, I totally missed all of this drama, but given Leonie's talk, I wonder if we could just create a text-to-speech Leonie, and the whole thing is fixed anyway. So all there's a post-production. Well, I've done a lot less work, I think, than most people this year. So I turned up at the end and worked on the last 3 sessions. What was interesting about those is that I think in different ways they all covered maybe groups of people or situations which are often forgotten, which is it's a nice thing that this conference we can put on things like that. We can really have some talks about things that people don't really think about. We've got plenty of room, 24 hours to do it in, so it gives us a lot of scope. As you've all said so far, I'm really looking forward to going through and watching several of the presentations probably this weekend, and then I'll get through the rest of them eventually. But a really good mix, and seems like everyone's done a great job today. Who wants to be next? Let's go with Stuart.
Oh, thanks, Ian. I'm just a little bit like Patrick in the sense of busy day as always to do things and then doing all the hosting stuff. But I'll be completely honest. I always have an immense pleasure watching any presentation from Russ. I know my team, we had our bingo card going to see how many insulted groups that would occur. I think we ended up ticking off devs, designers, product managers, Americans, himself. There was references to hard drugs, which is pretty standard for any presentation from a Russ perspective, and he does that in a way that is actually makes the topic, which I'm not a technical person, but a dry topic for me around date pickers, something really easy to understand and learn from as a non-technical person. And that actually flowed into Manuel as well, who I was had the pleasure of hosting his presentation, and his went even more hardcore technical around the Shadow DOM and accessibility of components around that. And that basically made although I struggled hard on that one because that went really hardcore technical, but there are definitely interesting elements of that that I was picking up and learning about just the conceptual side of things. But like everyone else, there's a huge number of amazing and interesting presentations there. There's some that for me look fascinating around, I caught snippets of from Megan around the Indigenous communities and accessibility. We have similar scenarios here in Australia around our very diverse Aboriginal Indigenous communities here, and sort of always hearing those different perspectives from different countries and different Indigenous community groups around those different countries. There's always lots of learning and sharing that can be happening in different locations around the world. So yeah, so many fascinating things and too many sort of stay on top of across that. And again, further watching at a later date when more time is available to be able to absorb and enjoy those amazing presentations. I'm going to throw to, I think, Eric in a second, but I'm just also going to do a shout out to everyone involved behind the scenes for this. I know, Patrick, you've referenced it, but as someone who wasn't part of organizing things, I know how much time, effort, passion, blood, sweat, tears goes into making an event like this work as well as it does. And it wouldn't happen with all of you involved putting all that time into doing it. It's never ever truly understood unless you've gone about making that time and effort to run these type of events. Most people only see the final product, but nah, all credit to all of you for all the effort you've put into this to keep it going over the many years and keeping it going with the success it is and continuing to add to the amazing knowledge library we've got building up there. So quick shout out on that before we throw over to Eric.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. Ideally, you know, it's a little less on the blood and more on the sweat and the tears, but you know, whatever happens, happens. I think, Patrick, I was thinking a lot about your 11 talks in 10 years comment, and kind of jumped back into our archives. And I think, as others mentioned, the breadth and also the depth of the talks this year really kind of just gave me pause in that, you know, the accessibility in the disability community has come a long way. And, you know, we have talks such as Manuel's, which are just really strong technical foundations. We also have, you know, areas of disability that are, you know, brand new ground, the video games industry, Crystal's talk about prisons. We're also seeing a lot about inclusion, the Indigenous communities talk, invisible disabilities. So I think that kind of put me in a little bit of a, you know, 10,000 foot perspective nostalgia space for like just how far we've come and how much more there is to do, but also like how much influence we're having over the industry in the world. And so that's a really kind of dodgy way to say I liked all the talks.
No, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes look back at the very early ones, which either through selection process or just because of those were the topics that people talked about at the time, were very, you know, HTML centric, very, you know, here's techniques to do this. And, you know, we had a few of those, as mentioned this year, but yes, year on year, the scope has kind of broadened much more beyond, you know, the how, but also, you know, the why, and also expanding it into obviously more the general inclusion and inclusive design areas. It's changed in character away from probably something that was more developer centric initially to something that's now much broader. Which is good to see, because so you can't constantly just look at the technology side, and probably on that one, I particularly enjoyed the talk from Zveta about chairs of all things, which you could draw so many parallels to so many other aspects of designing for the idealized mean user, and what happens when you do that, and having to consider the extremes on both ends. And so that just makes you think, rather than something that you just absorb because they tell you which attribute to put where. It kind of makes you reflect a little bit more. So I really enjoyed that aspect.
But
Patrick,
also-
I think that's sorry, make me think. I think that's a really good sign for us as an industry about the maturing of the accessibility community, the breadth of that, because as the community grows and we continue to have people enter the community from different lifestyles and different backgrounds, they bring that breadth of knowledge, breadth of experience into the community, into the industry, and broaden that industry out and help us to grow it, make it more mature, but also recognize that, accessibility has a very technical element to it, but it's also very people focused. There's also a diverse range of how it's applicable. And so having all of that really, I think, is a positive sign of a presentation. I was thinking about in the shower this morning about a healthy ecosystem that we're starting to create, because I come from an environmental science analytics background. So I was thinking future presentation for a future day, but again, a healthy ecosystem. And I think we've got that happening at the moment.
Yeah, and I
Good
think
stuff.
there are quite a few talks that reflected, get people involved, whether it was about AI bias or about people with low bandwidth or different cultures. That starts to permeate more and more, that it's not just about the technology, but if you're thinking of a system, then the people are part of that system, interacting with the technology. So you need to take that into account.
There were some hilarity moments too, like Bruce and I having our shirt off between talks, not literally taking our shirts off, but Bruce didn't like that I outshirted him.
Yes.
Was that an awkward segue? Because that's kind of my deal.
Yeah, that was good though. I was there. I can tell my son tomorrow. I was there when Bruce, just before we went live, said, "I'm just going to go for a second," and then came back with a completely different shirt because it was better than yours,
And then added a tie in the next one, and then the
Exactly.
Yeah.
He just escalated it at that point. Yeah, that was good to see.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of weirdness going on in the background. Sorry, Eric.
Absolutely.
I will note, at one point Eric said, "Oh, Adrian, you're growing a beard," and I had to correct him and say that at the start of ID24 I was clean shaven, and now it looks like I've rolled my head in a lint trap. So that's a somewhat good metaphor for the fact this is a bit of a marathon for a lot of us. I know all of you have been up for hours, and this doesn't even count for all the time planning and prepping and all the stressing about it. So I'm thrilled that once again we made it through and we pulled it off. We've all survived. Weird how that continues to happen. And I think that we had a really good slate of talks this year that I know I'm excited about, I'm proud of, and I think that our audience has generally been very positive of as well.
Adrian, I think weird and wonderful is a good thing. I think the more we lean into that, I think is a positive. I think sometimes as an industry, we fall into that trap of being everything for everybody and forget that we lose a bit of personality, we lose a bit of difference elements, and sometimes that connection with society as a whole. And I think weird and wonderful helps us. Doesn't mean that we don't get language correct and all that side of things and all those important stuffs, but weird and wonderful adds wonderful color, and it helps us make it human as a topic, which for some people it can be a difficult topic, it can be a dry topic, but as we see again this year, like every year, there's all these amazing stories, amazing personalities, fun, frivolity, and sometimes really difficult conversations, and having that balance is a really important thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, I kept saying to the speakers that was when we were doing tech checks and everything else, after telling them the hundreds of things that they need to be aware of and technology and everything else, I was almost kind of talking to myself saying, but it should be a fun experience. So it's like, here's 100 things that could go wrong, but don't worry, it will all be fine, honest, But as ever, we came through. I think the closest to a rather serious problem was we were missing contact with one of the speakers up until I think 5 o'clock in the morning my time, when that speaker finally reappeared and said really sorry, and then managed to do a fantastic talk and everything was fine. But you have that moment where at some point you just got to think, right, well, it is what it is. Hans and I were already planning, well, how we're going to style this. We can't do juggling and pantomime for an hour. We might just have to say something. But so you missed out.
Rap battle, right?
That's it. But so you missed out. Everybody in the world has missed out on our amazing skills. Maybe next time.
I'm sure Adrian and Bruce could have just put on a fashion show for us.
Absolutely, yes. Right. I think I'm certainly flagging now. I'm feeling the last 24 hours. I don't know about everybody else. Stuart told us that
another 24.
He's sparky. So I'll leave
10
you.
a.m. over here. I'm bright and sparky. I've had my tea for the morning, so
That's it. So what we didn't tell you, Stuart, is that you're actually doing ID24 Part 2 now for the next 24 hours. It's an extended one. So yeah.
am I copying Crystal's effort of just a one-man show in this case versus the one-woman show that she amazingly did recently?
Yeah, absolutely. That was quite a tour de force as well. Yeah. But no, I think we'll leave it at that for this year. I think we've all deserved a little break. I certainly will be crashing very soon. But yeah, just once again, thank you to everybody involved. Thank you to everybody here. Thank you to everybody who's already sleeping off their shift at the cold face of virtual online conferencing. And for that one, I would say thank you, everybody. And same time next year, question mark, but we'll see. Yeah. Excellent. So thank you all. I think we'll end it here.
Well, I think we'll end it. I think it's worth saying that Patrick has really sort of held things together this year and led from the front and deserves a huge amount of credit for this year's.
Yeah, thanks for organizing everything, Patrick.
Oh, and thank you all for coming through. It's all good. And my bank details.
More next year, so you get a bit for sleep.
Yeah, get some sleep. That would be good.
Like to
Right. Have a good one, everybody.